Okay, hello, Alita. Okay, this is for my contemplative playlist. This is part 3 of my homework for the our spiritual journey little mini class I'm taking at church with Reverend Maria Christina. She asked us to read this poem called Where I Come From. I think the poet's name is George Ella Lloyd. Anyway, I don't know anything about this poet, but I'm guessing it is a female poet who just happens to have the name George. I did listen to a couple of renditions of the poem by YouTubers that kind of like put the poem to a video, just make it more of a visual and auditory experience. The poem is about the people that the poet comes from. She talks about, I come from Clorox. You just get this picture of a young white girl living on a farm in the South, Midwest, whatever, Middle America. She talks about dirt and the smell of beets, the taste of beets. I didn't really like the poem very much. It didn't connect with me at all, but I think the idea is she was putting in poetic language like her roots, and the challenge for the group was to come up with our own Where I Came From poem or something to that effect. But I've been kind of doing the homework this way, just talking to myself, my future self, and exploring these themes from the class kind of out loud in this way. So if I'm going to explore this theme of where I come from, I know I've talked about it a lot. So my dad's side of the family made their way to Idaho. They were farmers. My grandma talked about her family coming across, the Oregon Trail, the covered wagons. But they stopped in Idaho. They didn't go any further. Of course, everybody, on my dad's side of the family, one of the strong themes for my grandma was that she was orphaned as a child. So her dad died first, and of course her dad was the moneymaker. So, things got real hard once her dad died, my grandma's dad, and then her mom died. And there's I think in my grandma's head, she was much younger. My dad said he did the math once or found some paperwork, whatever. It might have been she was 12 when her dad died and 14 when her mom died. But the point is, it was a different era. So it was just my grandma and her older brother and her younger sister, the 3 of them. And my grandma came from a family of 9 children. So by the time her mom died, there were only 3 siblings left at home. And I'm trying to get down, stuck here. Okay, here, let's get over. Okay, back on track. So, anyway, my grandma was an orphan. That was a big big part of her story. I mean, it clearly shaped who she became. I mean, yeah, it was a different time. She just basically lived on her own. There was no like social services, nobody to like come and help. They basically ate, you know, dandelions. And her older brother Andrew apparently went to the store and said, if they ever need anything, just put it on my account. But that information was never relayed back to my grandma and her brother and sister. So like, they're very prideful, so they didn't want to ask for help. So they didn't know that Andrew had said he'd pay for stuff. And so they just starved. It was just crazy. Crazy. So my grandpa was at like my grandma, like they went to the same school, you know. And my grandma said that my grandpa's family like would feed her. She could go over there for dinner. And my grandpa and his family became like a savior type situation. They really helped my grandma out. And then my grandpa and my grandma got married. And my grandpa wanted to go to college because he was like super academic and he loved school and he wanted to do like chemistry. And his parents, my great-grandparents, were like, that's really dumb. Like, who needs college? Farming is a perfectly, you know, good way to make a living. It probably was for them. So they, like, forbade my grandpa from going to college. And so he was like, my kids are going to get to go to college, which is how my dad and my aunt Louise ended up in Eugene, because my grandpa had connections and he knew that, like, there was the University of Oregon, and he was able to move the family to Eugene, and he had the gas station, and it just provided the means for my dad and my aunt to go to college. And of course, they went to the University of Oregon. And for my dad and my aunt, like, going to college was a given. Like, they were going to go to college no matter what. And my grandma was like, yeah, she was a super curious person who loved to learn and read and explore. And of course, you know, college was never an option for her either. So that's kind of like my dad's side of the family. My roots are in Idaho, but then very much in Eugene. Yeah. And my mom's side of the family, so my mom's mom and my mom's dad were married to other people, and they each had a daughter. And then my grandma got divorced from her first husband, and my grandpa got divorced from his first wife. And then they met each other and got married and had my mom. And from everything I heard growing up, my grandfather did not want any more children. He was not, that was not any kind of desire. And my grandma kind of went like subterfuge. She went off the pill without telling him so that she could get pregnant. She basically tricked him into having my mom. And from what Lori and I were told, my grandfather wouldn't even look at my mom for like the first 6 months. He didn't go to the hospital with my grandma. My grandma had to get a ride from other people. They were out in, you know, the Mount Hood. Where were they? It was Mount Hood. They had the Goff's Coffee Shop in Mount Hood. It was my grandpa and his brother Roy and the wives, and they owned this restaurant on the highway that went from Portland to Mount Hood and into Eastern Oregon. Ugh. God, it's always traffic on 405. Anyway, so I really kind of feel like my mom's beginnings were like really tragic. Really tragic. Like, my grandfather would not even acknowledge her for 6 months from everything that we were told. Like, he would just like walk right past her crib, and that's very cruel. Very cruel. I really don't have, I mean, there's just so much to unpack there. So much to unpack. And my grandma, you know, thought that he was worth staying with. Maybe she didn't want a second divorce, because her first marriage had been disastrous. Like, she married a guy, so this is my Aunt Marion's dad, biological father, and apparently he was a real philanderer and just had all kinds of affairs. And after my grandma divorced him, the story was that he ended up getting shot by the husband of a woman he was sleeping with. Like, the husband went and found his wife sleeping with this guy and shot him, and that was Marion's dad. Anyway, I kind of feel like my mom's beginnings and the heartbreak of that story, just all the trauma there, really shaped my mom, like, you know, in her life. My grandma, so my mom's side of the family, they were originally from Oklahoma. My grandma ended up in Oregon. Whereas my mom's dad's side of the family, they were like, my grandpa, my grandpa had a great grandma who lived with them on their farm out there on Matthews Road outside of Eugene. So my grandpa's mom's side of the family, they were Matthews with one T, Matthews. And there's Matthews Road outside of Eugene, Matthews Road, and that's named after my grandpa's mom's side of the family. So, and that would be, we're talking Lita here, that my mom's grandma, my great grandma, that's the person I was named after, who apparently was not a very nice woman. But she liked my mom. My mom had good memories with her, but everybody else kind of said she was real mean. And so of course all the pictures of Lita end up with me, because that's the person I'm named after. And yeah, she definitely has a stern look on her face. It's probably not a lot of joy in her life. She did not stay married to my grandpa's dad, like her husband. And she never got remarried. She had my grandpa, and she had his brother Roy. So it was Jean and Roy. And my grandma was Lita Matthews, but then she married the man who's got his Goff, right? Goff, which was my mom's name. Janet Marie Goff. Anyway, so my grandpa's mom's side of the family, they lived on that farm on Matthews Road. It was my grandpa, his mom, so my great-grandma, my great-grandma's parents, so that would be my great-great, and then his great-grandma, the mother of the grandma. So in that cemetery in Pleasant Hill outside of Eugene, near where Matthews Road is, there is my great-grandma, my great-great-grandma, and my great-great-great-grandma are all buried there. So on my mom's dad's side of the family, there is like deep roots in Eugene. Like, first white people to enter the Willamette Valley. And I mean, I am not a family history person at all. Lori's way more into that. It just doesn't bring me joy, so I don't really. I'm just giving you the basics here for posterity. Just putting it down in a little video. So, my mom was born in Mount Hood and Portland, and she eventually made it back down to Eugene. My mom spent like most of her childhood in Eugene, graduated from high school in Eugene, went to the University of Oregon, which is where she met my dad. And then it was Vietnam. So my dad was a student at the University of Oregon. He was 1 credit shy of, so if you were a college student, like a full-time college student, you were exempt from the draft. Well, he was 1 credit short of reaching that threshold where you would be exempt from the draft. So my dad was freaking out that he was going to get drafted because it was Vietnam. And he was doing, I think he was doing ROTC at the University of Oregon anyway. Probably helped pay for his college because, of course, he had to work, at the gas station full time. Like my dad had to pay his way through college. So he went and joined the Air Force because he was afraid that if he got drafted, he'd be drafted into like the Army or the Marine Corps, and he'd be like on the ground in Vietnam. And that definitely was, he was like, I don't want to have to do that. So he joined the Air Force. He tried to be a pilot, but he didn't have good enough eyes. So he became a navigator in Vietnam. And he did however many tours. And he was dating my mom anyway from the University of Oregon. So he was like, we got to get, the next thing is to get married. I don't want to leave to go off for my training for Vietnam and like do a long distance thing and risk us breaking up. Can we just get married? So that's what they did. So if I was going to like write a poem like this, Where I Come From poem. I come from people who travel. I come from people who want more. I come from people who don't always understand the wider implications of their movements. And by that I mean, I come from white people who probably never even occurred to them to see anything from like a white expansionist point of view. Like the indigenous people of the United States, like, were just not even a thought, I'm guessing. And how the movements across, from east to west of the United States, the impact of the settlers just wasn't even a consideration. We just didn't even think about that. It was just, how can I better my life? I come from people who wanted an education, who wanted to learn. I come from people who, well, especially on my mom's side, who care about what other people think. I don't know. Just come from that legacy of, let's get out of where we are. Let's go to this new place where maybe we'll have some more opportunities. Let's not even for 1 second consider the people who are already there. And let's just keep moving and doing what we need to do to make life better for ourselves. So, those are kind of my roots. And then I just grew up in the military. And it was a lot of moving. A lot of moving. Which is why I don't want to move again. Alright, well, I'm going to stop there. Maybe I'll explore this further another time.